Hello, friends. Thank you for joining me today on this episode of Nurses Out Loud. I have my friend and fellow whistleblower, Ryan Hartwig, with us today. He is going to discuss his disclosures and what he had done back in 2020 in regards to blowing the whistle on Facebook and the censorship of content. He was a content moderator. So it will be very interesting to hear his story. And I'm super excited that he was able to testify yet again in another state legislature. Welcome, Ryan.
Yeah, thanks, Jodi. Thanks for having me here. Yeah, as you mentioned last Wednesday, May 29th, no, June 29th, yeah, I testified before the Texas State Legislature, and they issued a subpoena against Google and Facebook. And so Zach Voorhees was there as well, a fellow whistleblower from Google. So they
Yes.
issued subpoenas for Google and Facebook, and basically just trying to uncover what it is exactly that Facebook is doing, because we all know what they're doing. Obviously, they're censoring political speech, but the states can have state election laws, and Facebook is interfering in their state elections. And so I think it's a great first step. It's better late than never. I know it's been 4 years since I went public, and
Yeah.
this is one of the first times, apart from West Virginia a few months ago, that I testified. But yeah, it's been 4 years. I've done over 200 interviews. This is a part-time thing. I'm not a full-time influencer, probably like you, Jodi. Like I just, on the side, I do interviews. I
Right.
work full-time and doing other stuff. But yeah, thank you so much for having me on your show.
Yeah, thank you. I mean, I think, some people listening right now would be interested to hear, like, oh, you blew the whistle on one of the largest or the largest social media giant. And you're not only still here to tell your story, but you are working. So that's
Yeah.
great.
Yeah. It's kind of hard to think that, back in 2018 I got this job at Facebook. It's entry-level job. I was working for Cognizant directly, but we had a contract with Facebook. So my job was to look at all the crazy stuff on the internet on Facebook and take it down. So you know, we had political content, we had election content in different countries like Latin America, Canada. We had like the memes, so we were the ones who reviewed all of your memes. And also we had like objectionable content like pornography and um, just like violence and gore. So there's a lot of stuff we did, but yeah, I just had to click through one at a time and review the policies for Facebook and determine if content should be taken down. And so yeah, I was there for just under 2 years. So I ended in February 2020, right before COVID. I kind of wish I would have stayed there during COVID. That would have been fascinating to see. But but yeah, so I that was in 2020. Um, so I ended up filming with a hidden camera. So what happened was the summer of 2019. I'd been there for about a year, and I saw all these exceptions Facebook was making for their policies. I noticed they're really focused on political speech. And so I reached out to a few journalists, and I connected with Project Veritas, and they sent me a camera. And so I filmed with a hidden camera while working there in the office for about 9 months. And
Wow,
so
9 months.
9 months total from start to finish. Yeah, the last 3 or 4 months was pretty steadily every day. Um, but yeah, it was quite the
Your
experience.
nerves
So
had to be shaken.
it
I mean,
was yeah. I mean, it was a little bit different because it wasn't as like, I know there's journalists, undercover journalists who like meet people randomly and just like film them, but yeah, it was nerve-wracking, but at least I had the benefit or advantage of like already knowing these people, so I already had a relationship with them. I don't know if that
Mhm.
makes it better or worse, because then you feel like you're betraying your friends, but
Yeah.
it did take a while to get used to it, and then you get to a point when you're wearing a camera, you almost forget you're wearing it.
Hmm.
I mean, I had different types of cameras, but yeah, I would start up conversations with my coworkers and talk to them about the Facebook's policies, and then I would record, of course, the screen um, at Facebook, and it was a very strict environment. We actually had At one point we actually had Pinkerton armed security guards there on site. So because someone had leaked our address and we were deleting like terrorist content and stuff, so they upped security, and no paper was allowed at all or nothing electronic. So I can't tell you exactly how I used the camera, but I did,
Yes.
and I recorded the screen and all of the policies, and yeah, and so I went public in June of 2020, with Project Veritas, and then it was just kind of this going public was crazy because I did from the get go. I did all these interviews, and it was just I got thrown in the hot seat,
Mhm.
and I did interviews for about 9 months straight. Maybe, let's see, June of 2020 to yeah, and then I wrote my book, and then I went back to work in a working in a call center, unrelated, in
Mhm.
March of 2021. So everything since then, yeah, my book that I published, it's been kind of just on the side, and some of the results that we had. So
So the name
I'm
of the
getting
book,
yeah.
guys, for everybody listening, is Behind the Mask of Facebook, a whistleblower shocking story of big tech bias and censorship. So tell us, what was it that you exposed?
Yeah. So a lot of what I exposed, so it was Facebook's double standards. So for example, they have a hate speech policy, but if it's if you're a straight white male, then it's okay to be attacked. So for example, Don Lemon said publicly, white males are terror threats. And Facebook told us to make a newsworthy exception to allow that kind of hate speech, um, because it's Don Lemon and he's attacking straight white males. Also, Facebook during Pride Month in 2019, Facebook told us that it's okay to attack it's okay to attack straight white males as being filth for not supporting the LGBT movement. Um, so once again, you have all these policies to protect people, but then if you're a white guy or you're straight, then all of a sudden these protections don't apply.
Right.
So those were a couple of examples, and then that's just their influence with attacking Trump. So if anytime that Trump was speaking, Facebook would say, "Hey, look for hate speech coming from Trump. Trump's talking about immigrants. Look for hate speech. Trump's giving a State of the Union. We're going to, look for hate speech coming from the State of the Union address." Yeah, I mean, I have a
Wow.
long list here, and it's in my book, Behind the Mask of Facebook. Just
Hmm.
this analysis of their policies. Abortion. Anytime people are talking about abortion, they would side with the people on the left. Um, uh,
So
they,
when you're
yeah.
saying about siding or censoring, you're the one who or you were the one who slaps the, missing context or, this story is false post.
So that label was separately applied, I believe. So I had the power to delete one post at a time. So I would do that. I didn't see the result action of like, okay, banning a complete account, but I would delete a individual post.
Oh, so just
So if you were,
completely remove it.
yeah, just completely remove it. Um, so if someone was posting about like a span, like a health supplement that had some exaggeration or promises, like those weight loss like spam links where
Yeah.
says lose 20 pounds in 2 days. We would delete those.
Okay.
Um, but if there was a post that said, straight white, someone was posting on Facebook or Instagram saying, "Hey, straight white males are filth for not supporting LGBT,"
Mhm.
then I would say, "Huh, normally I would take this down." But Facebook told me, like, our Facebook was our boss, our client. They were trying to make them happy. We should do what we're told. I would allow that hate speech because Facebook made an exception, like a one-time exception.
Mhm.
And like with like fetus, like with fetuses. So there was a meme about fetus soup, and
Oh.
Facebook said, "Hey, normally we would mark this as cruel because they're joking about like fetus soup, like that's just gross." And there's but then Facebook came back and said that fetuses are not considered humans, so we're not gonna mark it a certain way. So like it really gives you
Wow.
this insight into like what these people in San Francisco are thinking when they don't consider fetuses as human.
Yeah, well, that speaks a lot. No, no doubt. I mean, is it true that those of us that are trying to get some movement on Instagram or even
Yeah,
Facebook, we feel
good luck
like,
with that.
oh, our fact checkers are at it again. Do you have one person that you follow? I mean, is that possible?
So the way that we handled it there at Facebook, it was very anonymous. Like they were somewhat careful about data privacy. So the jobs I got were random, so I could see the name of the user, um, but I couldn't go into their profile at all or see their other posts. So yeah, it was just kind of a random. They'd throw it into my on my screen.
Okay.
Um, but yeah, I mean there are. It's so weird because there were so many weird like loopholes where, for example, this is just a random example. Like, so
Mhm.
no, Facebook doesn't allow nudity or pornography, but if you post like nudity, like a topless photo of a woman, right, and you say, oh, that's me, I'm non-binary, I identify as non-binary,
Mhm.
then Facebook would allow that nudity because they're not female nipples anymore.
Oh
They're not.
my gosh.
So like, yeah,
It's so nuts. And those people, that are out there saying, "Oh, well, we get censored too." It's like, no, you don't. No, you
yeah.
don't.
No, like people don't realize the extent of it, and it's funny because for years, Democrat senators have been saying, "Oh, that's just a myth. Facebook doesn't censor people on the right."
Mhm.
But yeah, I've got this list of like 43, at least 43 examples. It's like, yeah,
Uh-huh.
just the extent of it is, and to put it into scale, just like for your listeners, I'm moderating maybe a couple hundred pieces of content a day, but if you have Facebook has at least 10,000 content moderators, so if you multiply 10,000 by 200 a day, I mean, you're
Mhm.
looking at millions of posts a year that are being censored. So one little change, you think it might be small, but it'll affect millions of people.
Yeah, that's good. Thank you for putting that into context. That's true. So your job was essentially to scroll all day. Is that
Yeah, very essentially. Yeah,
how
we had
how
like a
was
this.
that?
It was a very unique work environment, and I gotta tell you, like and you've probably experienced this. You have a closeness with people in the nursing industry just because of the nature of your work, and you have like life and death scenarios. For us, it wasn't life and death, but it was a closeness with your coworkers because you're sitting there next to your coworker and you flip the screen over. You're like, hey, is this? You're seeing like sexual content and just like weird stuff. Hey, is this are these bloody innards? Can you see the bone sticking out or not? Because you know, or
Right.
is this yeah, it's just random stuff.
Like,
Like, is that
dude,
cartel
did you
video? Yeah,
I was gonna say, like, dude, did you see this? Look at this.
yeah, a lot of it would be like, and we would do that, and that was okay. We were okay to like talk about crazy stuff we saw, as long as it wasn't, as long as we were joking about child porn, like we were okay doing that. But yeah, I'd turn my screen and be like, hey, look at this cartel video, like, or just having someone to cope with, to like share, like express to the person next to you what you were seeing. And we had
Mhm.
counselors on site because we would see a lot of graphic content. We would see like cartel videos. So in a cartel video, if there's someone getting murdered, of course we would, or beheaded or cut, like their arm being cut off, we would delete that. But the weird thing is with our hierarchy, we can only delete the post for one reason. So if there's nudity in this cartel video, if someone's like naked and their arm is being cut off, then we wouldn't delete it for violence. We would delete it for nudity. So, um, just kind of a weird fact.
How do all of these like violent posts come out? I mean, I wasn't real big on social media, and prior to 2020, and I would
Yeah,
just, post my trips, and maybe my dancing routines or something. But
yeah.
I wasn't political at all. So I never got a missing context flag or anything like that. But how,
How did it become so political? Um,
yeah,
so I
yeah.
mean, I think it's always been. I think since we really saw social media being used politically the most in the 2012 presidential election with Obama. So that was the
Okay.
first time that social media really became big because YouTube was a lot bigger by then, 2009, 2010. Facebook had just was getting a lot bigger, and so I think politicians and Obama usually used it in a effectively
Mhm.
by targeting certain demographics, and then we saw the the Cambridge Analytica scandal with Trump in 2016, where Trump was basically doing the same thing that Obama did, like harvesting the data from Facebook and using it for the campaign. But after 2016, when
Wait, what
Trump
does that
won,
mean? What does that mean?
yeah.
Harvesting data and stuff.
So when all your personal info is on Facebook, like your name, your date of birth, your email address. So in data, in the IT field, there's something called metadata. And you take all of that data and you like bundle it together and you sell it to advertisers. So like when advertisers want to find someone, a female in their 30s who wants to buy skincare products, then they go to these data companies and they say, hey, we want to target our advertising to this person. And then that advertiser says, oh, I have this Facebook data. You can target your ads on Facebook to these people. So that's why it's Facebook's free, because you are the product, because they're selling your data. And so with Cambridge Analytica, that data was being used, and people could say it was being used illegally, but I mean, you basically sign away all your data when you sign up for Facebook. It's in the terms and
Like
conditions. So
everything.
yeah. So this analytics firm in the UK, in Cambridge Analytica, was using this data and was giving it, the Trump campaign was buying the data. And so that's all it was like the Trump campaign was doing marketing for their political campaign, just like
Yeah.
any other campaign. And they made it a huge scandal and they had to, because Trump won.
Oh, I gotcha. Okay. I don't even know if I even remembered that, but yeah, everything is blown up. I mean, like Trump or not, everything is blown up with him. And I think, well, let's talk about that. What's your opinion on his I don't know what is
His
it?
arrest, indictment.
Convicted felon, 34-time convicted felon. What's your opinion on that?
Yeah, I think I read a post in the I think an article in the New York Post by a prosecutor who's worked with Alvin Bragg, and was just like, come on, guys, like nobody's ever been convicted under the same thing. Like, because there's separate charges. There's the business practice. There's like hiding information or whatever, or not documenting it correctly, and then but it has to be tied to another charge. One second. Yeah, it has to be tied to another charge for it to be like a conviction. I don't know. So we all know it's a witch hunt, but it's really sad that the legal system has become so politicized that people will literally just like sell their souls in order to, it's literally just a talking point now. And we saw these billboards go up. Tim Pool posted today, I think, all these billboards went up saying, oh, I'm a Republican and I won't vote for Trump anymore because I won't vote for a convicted felon.
Right.
So that's the talking point. What the cost of a talking point is selling your soul and destroying the legal system.
Mm-hmm.
So we really have become, it's just a slippery slope, and we've really just gone down a dangerous path. So and I don't know. I think they really, like, we have to understand though, they really do want to see him rotting in prison. Like it's not just about a talking point. They honestly, truly want him in a dark, dank jail cell.
Yeah.
So
They don't
yeah,
even want him dead. They want him rotting in a jail cell with no visitors. I mean, literally, and solitary confinement. And that's how it's just so evil. And I think, and what's your view on it? That I think that American people are, even on the left, are like, okay, whoa, this is too much. What are your thoughts?
yeah, I think the people that are not, fully indoctrinated or not affected by groupthink as much, that aren't brainwashed, or I mean, because and brainwashing and the groupthink happens on the right as well. Like there's echo chambers on the right and the left, but yeah, I think most people who can like think critically realize that, hey, this is kind of nuts that they're trying to arrest this guy still during election year, because they want to keep him off the campaign trail. I think we'll see. I mean, we'll see what happens in November. I think that I know some people who do analytics, and they're saying that Trump is going to win with between 270 290 electoral votes. Um, but they're doing everything they can. I mean, here in Arizona, the state election officials were both in Arizona.
Yeah.
They moved the election date up a week, and it's like, why would you? Yeah, so the election date for the primary election is July 31st. I think it's normally early August. So there's a lot of things that states can do to mess things up. And I think now, like with the if he does get convicted as a felon, states can then make an issue of that, saying, "Oh, we can't have a convicted felon on our ballot in our state," and so they're probably going to try that.
Uh,
But yeah,
Gotcha.
this is just yeah, and in Facebook, they were really concerned about election influence. So the whole reason, so Trump won in 2016. Most of the content moderation that I did for Facebook prior to that was overseas. But they told us because of Russian influence in the 2016 election, they wanted to bring those jobs onshore.
Okay.
So
Do we think,
yeah,
was there Russian interference?
that's been disproven. I'm sure. I mean, sure, every country is influencing our election. Like, who wouldn't want to influence the U.S.? The
Right.
Chinese want to influence the Canadians,
Yeah.
Mexico.
I traveled
Um,
so much over, oh, like 2016, 2017 overseas, probably, I don't know, 7 or 8 different countries. And every time I would be in a country and somebody would hear my voice, they're like, "Oh, you're an American. What do you think about Trump?" Everybody,
mhm.
everybody. I had few dozen conversations, and 90% of them loved Trump. They're like, "Listen, he might be a jerk. He might shoot off at the mouth, but you know what? They respect him. People respect him."
Yeah,
And it was just very interesting to see how what if I told them, I said, "Oh, if you watch the American news, you would think that, everybody hates him." And they're like, "No, no, that's not how it is." And I'm like, I know, because it's like I knew then. I mean, I stopped really watching the news years ago. I don't even think I
yeah,
really even watched the news. I was probably like the standard American, pretty much, that just voted every 4 years and didn't get involved in anything political. Try to be a good person, be a good citizen, and be a good
yeah.
parent, raise good kids. And then I did my job.
Yeah, I think that a lot of Americans were like that. And I've always personally I've always kind of followed politics, so I've followed it probably more than the average American. But yeah, it makes you think about like how most like people like you have been impacted by all of this, because I think COVID and kind of the backlash. So like you look at the backlash from this conviction where the average person would be like, why are they bringing this bogus charge against him? Or with COVID happening, like, hey, why did they shut down all of our businesses? Like, why does the government have this much power? So I think the average person who's non-political, like yourself, is probably wondering, like, hey, what's going on? They're probably waking up to this.
Mm-hmm.
And I've met a lot of people in the medical freedom movement. Um, there's an older lady who goes to my dad's church who was like against the vaccine, or I mean for the vaccine, and then since then she noticed a lot of family members getting really sick after taking it, the vaccine.
Yeah.
And so now I recently got her, like, I made sure she got some of the spike support formula from twc.health.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so yeah, I think like the average American, like I'm kind of I'm kind of the exception to the rule. And like it was good for like being working for Facebook, I helped them a lot because I was in tune to political things and we had to research a lot of things. So if we get a post about like Trump or like the Brett Kavanaugh, most moderators probably didn't pay attention too much, but I was able to help the company quite a bit. And like, okay, this is what's happening. Or people are talking about civil war, and Facebook's like, oh yeah, we urgently need visibility into the civil war or the Democrat debates, and they totally re-engineered their entire moderation queue ahead of the 2020 election so that they would get more like hate speech content.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but yeah, they wanted information about far right extremism globally.
Right.
So we had hate groups where anybody, even local militia groups, were considered hate groups, and anybody on the right, like Gavin McInnes or like Laura Loomer, they're hate figures. So I just think Facebook, well, in general, social media has not been good for society. I mean, if you look at just adults and teenagers now, we're on our phones all day. I
Yeah.
think just the phones in general are not good for society. But the fact that Facebook can now extract all your personal data, sell it, and then polarize political views and stick people in echo chambers where you're just regurgitating. And I gotta say, like it happens on the right as well because
Hmm.
I'm mainly follow people on the right on social media. But if something's not true and they're repeating it, I try to call them out.
Yeah, absolutely. I remember attending one meeting with some big names, and it was this think tank meeting, and they're like, okay, well, let's talk about like what the topics are, what we want to, get out there, what information we want to get out there, and let's come up with like a slogan. And I'm like, like I don't know, let's just say a shot in every arm, okay? And so then it was like, okay, well, let's just repeat it because the left does that so well. And I say a shot in every arm always because that's exactly what they wanted. But that it's that type of um I don't know, groupthink, if you will, and marketing,
Yeah,
because I think the left is super, super good at marketing and they stay on point and they stay on topic, you
yeah,
know, and then you get the right where we're supposed to be Christians and be nice to each other. And I mean, not that the left isn't Christian, I don't mean that, but
yeah,
then their jealousy comes out and egos come out and money comes out and it's like, oh my gosh, guys, can we just all at least try to get along? And I remember
yeah.
there was this survey that I had taken, maybe it was like whichsideareyou.com, and it was just a bunch of questions. You didn't know which party affiliation it was coming from, and you just answered it all. And it was like 50 questions. And at the end, I was more like libertarian, right leaning. And all of these Democrats, self proclaimed Democrats, I said, okay, come on, take it, take this test and see. And they were the same, more libertarian, a little bit to the
Yeah.
right. And it's like, oh man, that's just what doing things traditionally, generationally will get you. And people just don't want to see out of the box a lot. You said a couple of things that I really want to pick up on when we get back. Civil War, I want to talk a little bit about that,
Okay.
and also about our phones and children. And because you were on it all day, as a job, and many kids look at it like it's a job. They're on the phone more than they're in school, and so we'll talk about that, guys, when we come back. But check out twc.health. Ryan mentioned their products, and I really like their medical kits. They have many different or like several different varieties of kits that you can get. And I'm always one of those people that are going to say, be prepared. Don't wait to the last minute till you need something. The kits come with the book and it tells you how to take it, when to take it. And I just think it's a really good tool to lower the stress burden for the next time a fear propaganda campaign comes out. And we'll be right back after the break. Welcome back. Thank you for joining me. I'm your host, Nurse Jodi O'Malley, and you are listening to Nurses Out Loud. I am with my friend and fellow whistleblower, Ryan Hartwig, who blew the whistle on Facebook. He was a content moderator and wore a hidden camera for 9 months before exposing his disclosures to the world. And so I'm very thankful for your courage and your bravery, Ryan. But let's just touch on the aspect of Civil War. I've
Okay.
been feeling like that is kind of been looming for a while,
Yeah.
for a while. What do you think the probability of something like that
So
is?
yeah, so when I was moderating for Facebook, it came up. So at that I was there from 2018 to 2020. So like leading up to 2020, there were mentions of civil war. There's another phrase called boogaloo, Boogalloo, and it's a reference to there's different meanings for it. So if you go to Urban Dictionary, boogaloo is like this traditionally like just a dance style, but
Oh
it also
yes.
has yeah, it also has a meaning of reference to civil war.
Mm.
So it means civil war in some contexts. But really, I mean, there's been like there's been division in the country, and we saw that during the President Obama's era. Like he tried to sow division amongst us and cause division between us and the police. So if you want to disrupt any country and destroy it, then you want to divide the people. And so social media has been another element and a way to divide people. So a civil war, I mean, especially with Trump just being indicted, there's been other more calls for civil war. But realistically, I mean, when you're thinking about civil war, I mean, we're already in kind of a like a culture war.
Hmm.
But a civil war, I mean, quite literally would mean like getting rifles and like killing each other, right? Like fighting
Yeah.
over, like then that's just dumb. That's just idiotic. So I think the powers that be would want us to have a civil war to weaken. Excuse me. They'd want to weaken us. So it would be great for Russia or China if we were all just like killing each other. Um, and I don't think it's really fair to compare that to the war between the North and the South,
Hmm.
um, which is actually more about states' rights and less about slavery. But that's a whole other topic.
Okay.
If you want to yeah, I mean there's some different debates there, but at the end of the day, that's the Civil War. You had brothers killing brothers like across the North and the South, which is horrible. And you think about yeah, the population was what, a couple million? I don't know how many million,
Yeah.
not many. And then how many people died? Maybe half a million.
Yeah. A
I could
lot.
be wrong. I'm not a historian,
Right.
but and you look at these other bloody wars like World War I and World War II, and looking back at it now, I'm like, what was the point of all this? I mean, and so I think there are powers that are kind of dictating some of these wars that we've seen in the past, these world wars, and want this conflict. And now we have the military-industrial complex that was developed, since World War II, starting with the 50s, and Eisenhower warned us about this military-industrial complex. So I
Explain
don't,
that. Explain the military industrial complex a little bit.
yeah. So we entered World War II, and as a result of that, I'm just looking up that quote real quick. As a result of World War II, we learned how to mass produce. So we just had the Industrial Revolution, so we were mass producing goods, and then we built war airplanes and different kind of things for like canned goods for World War II. And so coming out of World War II, we had all of these factories, and so the economy turned and mass produced refrigerators and microwaves and appliances, washers and dryers. So the U.S. economy really, I was recently studying this, really grew a lot. You had all these people coming back from war, they're getting married, they're moving to the suburbs. We had the creation of suburbia,
Mm.
and so life was great in the 50s. I mean, automobiles were being produced more than ever before. We created the state highway system, which was Eisenhower, which is great for travel. Um, Not very good for like the urban like walking
Yeah.
cities, but yeah, President Eisenhower in 1961, he ended his presidential term by talking about the increasing power of the military-industrial complex. And
Hmm.
so he said that, I'm trying to find the direct quote for him.
Yeah,
He
because I
called it
think we had talked about military industrial pharmaceutical complex, you know?
yeah,
And I mean, it's just crazy when you get I remember in 2020, I'll talk a little bit while you're looking for
yeah,
that
yeah,
quote.
yeah,
But I remember in 2020 in the very beginning, I was like, man, what is this? What do you mean we're shutting down? We saw so many people sick over these last 4 months, 5 months, and they were getting better and they were tested negative for the flu. I bet you they had COVID. myself included. I had just come back from Seattle, got sick on February 19th. So 2020. And, I'm thinking all this and seeing this. And I remember like my BS meter just went off immediately. Okay. And then when I started seeing the 24/7 death toll ticker, Benjamin at the time, I think he was like a 10 or 11, he said, Mom, is this propaganda? And I had just taken him to go see Jojo Rabbit, which is a satire comedy, actually drama of a little boy in Nazi Germany, and Hitler was his imaginary best friend. And so there's a whole story there, but he recognized it. And I said, yes, I think this is what they would say would be propaganda. And so many people fell on, board with it. But, like I talk to my listeners all the time, my faith just would not allow me to be fearful. And so I just research. And I heard that term, follow the money, and forget about it. My life has never been the same. Always follow the money, and you will see why things happen the way they did. So, yeah.
Yeah, no, the money, exactly. The money is there. And when you have industries this large, so Dwight D. Eisenhower, he said in 1961, in councils of government, we must guard against the acquisition of unwarranted influence, whether sought or unsought by the military industrial complex. Potential for the disastrous rise of misplaced power exists and will persist. And so, yeah, I mean, you had this huge industry coming out of the World War II, and then what are they going to do? Everyone wants to keep their jobs, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so, 50 years later, you see how many we got. We had Vietnam, we had Desert Storm, the War on Terror, Iraq, and then just this, it's a billion, probably $1 trillion industry. The same goes for the censorship industrial complex. Now we have Facebook and Google working together with the government to censor and control political speech. And then we have the medical industrial complex, which, big pharma making billions and billions of dollars off of people getting sick. And so, yeah, it's.
I think Marjorie Taylor Greene or somebody in that Fauci hearing a few days ago said that there, I think 11 million or $11 billion people in Congress got. And she asked Fauci, am I saying this right? Did you watch it? And she asked Fauci, like, hey, have you taken any money from them? And he's like, oh no, I get $100 royalty check for creating I don't know, monoclonal 50 years ago. And I'm like, oh, come on, dude. Like, it's so frustrating to listen to these members in Congress. First of all, ask fluff questions,
Yeah.
and then the way they were doing it was like, I guess, a Republican, then a Democrat, Republican, then Democrat. So as soon as he was getting all heated up, having to answer a question and then letting another, Republican, I guess, come in and follow behind him and get him to answer, he got a break, and then he got another break,
Well, I don't know if you knew this, but like Dr. Fauci, he was asked, he did an interview, and they asked him, what's your favorite book of philosophy? And he said, The Godfather. Like, I'm not kidding you. And no, and his whole like philosophy is, it's nothing personal, it's strictly business. And so like he's a mobster. Like, and it makes sense. Like his actions and how he behaves, it actually makes a lot of sense.
Totally.
And I don't know, I didn't see that hearing. I watched like something from Laura Loomer where there was a guy behind him in the hearing that was like making faces, like talking. Yeah. Yeah. But
oh, and that's another thing, the decorum aspect. I just want to be like, screw you and your decorum. I mean, if we can have a member of Congress come in and talk, say, like how you and I are, if we were questioning each other, maybe we might get a little heated and this and that, but there was a whole Senate COVID thing here in Arizona, and it was presented one way, and then it wound up being another way. And it was told to us that it's to honor the decorum of the office. And I'm like, hold on a second. Aren't you elected by the people? You know what the
Yeah.
people want to hear and see, but you're more concerned about the decorum than getting answers for the people.
Yeah, the issue is the excuse to interrupt people. So if they don't like what you're saying, then they cut you off because of decorum, or they can make, they use someone's rule to cut you off. But yeah, the COVID thing and the health thing. I mean, we limit before when I left, we were, we would regulate some, obviously you couldn't sell prescription medications on Facebook and things like that. So we regulated that. Um, but yeah, it's so easy. So what's fascinating is we did have a policy in place. And I published this with the Gateway Pundit. I don't think it made it into my book, but we were restricting vaccine content before COVID in discussions of vaccines. So if I say like vaccines cause autism, like that phrase was specifically targeted by Facebook as, fake, being fake or against their policies. And then the hashtag vaccines cause autism was also banned.
Mm.
So it just kind of goes to show that they were perfectly poised to be able to regulate other vaccine content with
Right.
COVID. And it's funny now because when you say vaccine, it's funny how the word vaccine now has become synonymous with COVID. And I was trying to do a couple years ago. I wanted to schedule an appointment with a mental health counselor, like in person. And this counselor asked me, "Are you vaccinated? Like, did you take the vaccine?" And I answered no, but I should have answered, "Yeah, I took the flu vaccine. Yep." Like, because people just assume vaccine means
Yeah.
it's kind of an interesting phenomenon.
No, and you're exactly correct. If somebody said that, like, are you vaccinated? Yes, yes, I am. What your definition of fully vaccinated is, and mine, and even CDC or FDA or Pfizer or any of them. I mean, the definitions kept changing all the time. You had to wait 2 weeks and get your other one and blah, blah, blah. Like, so annoying. Well, how
Yeah.
was it testifying in the Texas legislature?
Yeah, so I
What
flew
was
to
it that they wanted you for?
right. So I flew to Austin last week, and the Heritage. I worked with the Heritage Foundation, so Heritage Foundation arranged the testimony. So I'm thankful for them for helping get that set up. But basically, what I talked about was foreign influence, and in influence in the elections. So some of what I said is like, hey, like Facebook never trained me on state law for Texas state law for elections. Like there's a lot of local election laws that should be taken into account. So if Facebook is going to tell moderators, hey, enforce election content or moderate it, then why they should at least train them. And one example I gave was like in 2018, there was a viral video of a Trump supporter in Texas who got attacked. He was at a Whataburger joint, and somebody attacked him and knocked his hat off. And the guy was cursing at the kid, like cussing, but it wasn't too obscene at all. And so Facebook told us across the board, "Oh, you have to delete this video," because it was viral. It had millions of views. So Facebook was like, "Oh, delete this video because there's cursing at a minor," which normally isn't deleted.
Right.
But they didn't want to show that sympathy toward a Trump supporter. So that's one example. Facebook was having us, flag politically related content, telling us how to action political speech. I don't know. This is like in 2018, Ron DeSantis was running for governor, and Andrew Gillum was running against him, a black guy. And Ron DeSantis used the phrase, "Oh, this, he's going to monkey things up." And of course, the leftist media is like, "Oh, he's racist. Ron DeSantis is racist. He's calling him a black guy a monkey," right? And Facebook told us to action the same way. So Facebook interpreted that. But it's just the sheer power that Facebook has. Like even in Venezuela, Facebook told us to delete a post where people were making a call to arms for the Venezuelan revolution. So it's just crazy that Facebook, and we saw this with Twitter as well, where Michael Schellenberger released the Twitter file showing how if you're the CIA and the intelligence community, you would love Facebook because you can just overthrow a dictator using social media instead of having to go in person and assassinate.
Well, exactly. And I think, when we talked about civil war and this and that, I think this is just another war, on the family unit and community. This is even bigger than having guns and stuff, in my opinion, because
Yeah.
it messes with your psyche, and you're stressed out, and then you could be mean or depressed or anxious, and all of these different things. I mean, it's really truly, I mean, in many ways more evil than putting a bullet in someone and being done
Yeah.
with it. They're like killing people slowly, and it's kind of scary. I
Yeah.
mean, you had, okay, so good, thank
Real
you.
quick,
So
have
what?
you heard the
Yeah.
phrase what you just described is referred to as fifth dimensional warfare.
Yes.
And General Flint's talked about that, but continue. Yeah.
No, I have heard that as well, the fifth generational warfare. And I actually got the book, The Art of War, and I'm reading it with Benjamin. We're reading a few pages out loud every now and again. And
That's great.
it's a small book, but just to do something like that together and then have a discussion, but yeah, I mean, it's
Great.
psychological and extremely manipulative. So you tested, what do they hope to do with this? I know you said that they issued a subpoena
Yeah.
to Facebook. So what is it? They have to, what do they
So
got?
it's a request for records, and they wanted to know, the legislature wanted to know what specifically, like the request from Google, for example. So they're asking my colleague Zach Voorhees what kind of records we request. But I think if they can request any kind of records relating to how Facebook enforced election content,
Mhm.
because and that could and there could be some possible violations of the law.
Yeah.
Now, up until now, we even, I helped get it in 2020. I helped get a criminal referral to the DOJ for Mark Zuckerberg because his Congressman Matt Gates, he took the evidence I gave him and he showed that proved that Zuckerberg lied before Congress because he testified that they don't censor political content.
Mhm.
But nothing happened, right? Nothing came of it. So I
Yeah.
think we still need to push. We need to try with these subpoenas because so far Congress hasn't been able to do anything against big tech. Well, they've taken some action, but I mean these companies are monopolies, and so yeah, everything we can do, I think with the states have some power, and I think a lot of states were influenced by the Zuckerbucks in 2020, 2016, yeah, 2020, where a lot of money was given to the state election systems.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, the subpoenas are a step in the right direction. I mean, we can't. I don't want to like say that nothing ever happens because small things have to happen. I know legislatures move fairly slowly, so we
Yes.
have to do something.
I mean, it's been 4 years. We were a couple months shy of, the next presidential election. And now all of a sudden they're like, oh, let's get together. I mean, for a
Yeah,
lot of us Americans, I mean, we look at them as really shills. I know some that have gotten into power recently, and I think their intentions were very good, and they're, at the heart, good people. But once you get into this, I mean, it's almost like the epitome of a big boys club. You get in,
yep,
and then you just talk amongst each other, and you have this power, and your ego, like, if you're led by your ego, I mean, forget about it. Forget about it. If you haven't checked your ego at the door, you're just, they're going to capture you. And and I think, from what I was told, how certain things would go in a hearing, in this testimony hearing, I still haven't seen it. And I think they've met a few times. Do you know what I mean? It's just like, I don't know. How do we change that, Ryan? Can we
yeah.
change it? Where, how,
Civil war.
yeah, I
That
know.
that's why people are clamoring for civil war because it's like you look at what people put up with in the past, like the French Revolution. You look at the American Revolution, and the little like we've put up with so much, like with the IRS, with the taxes, with just everything, so I can see why people feel that way.
Yeah.
It's like, what do we do? Like, the people are corrupt. In Arizona, like the election, we haven't passed a single election law, and we let in 2022, I think, or 2020, no, 2020, yeah,
22.
Katie Hobbs became the governor,
Mm-hmm.
and there's all kinds of discrepancies with that election process. So it's like there's another election in like 5 months, and
Yeah.
our legislature can't fix it, and there's everything going on, the corruption. Like, what else are Americans supposed to do? That's why I feel like, yeah, I can definitely understand the rationale for at least being well armed, and
Mm-hmm.
if there's a bunch of people crossing the border and they're coming in, there's gonna be violence against us, then we have to defend ourselves, right? So,
Right. Be prepared.
yeah, be prepared.
Just be prepared. Yeah. I mean, I think we'll all be called to do different things and different purposes and stuff, but be prepared and don't live in fear is a really big one, because they're just gonna, your ability to critically think will be just decimated, and you'll react on emotion. And we cannot react on emotion because it doesn't get us anywhere. All right, what do you think about how do we protect our children? We got like a couple
Oh
minutes
yeah,
left.
yeah. I'm sorry we didn't spend more time on
I
this.
know.
So this is big because I'm looking at my kids. I've got a 3-year-old and a 1 year old, two daughters, and unfortunately, like they have a lot of screen time, like watching YouTube, kids shows, and then they spend time with us, and they see the parents all the time on the phone as well.
Mhm.
So just overall, just big picture, I think technology, like cell phones, have not been good for society. The smartphone has not been good for society, for our attention span, for anything. And then these algorithms that Facebook uses, and TikTok and other apps, they reduce our attention span. It's bad for our eyes, bad for everything. So I think the
Mhm.
more we just overall, the more we can get away from technology, get away from the screen, spend more time outside. That's best. I'm There's a new Parlor relaunched Parlor, and it's not going to have any advertisements. I'll tell you more about that, or you'll hear about it soon.
Okay.
But anybody who wants to rejoin Parlor, they can. I just rejoined. So you want, anyways, that's the long and short of it, is protecting your kids. If you have a teenager,
Mm.
don't let them have a phone, or severely restrict the usage of cell phones, because those apps are really dangerous. Some of those apps,
Well, and
like
here's the other thing.
anonymous, yeah,
They're dangerous in the fact that you don't even know they have them. Like they are so far beyond Facebook, TikTok, Snapchat
yeah,
platform. They have Discord, they have this, they have that. Just today, Benjamin, he's like, "Oh, I'm getting off my phone." Or I'm getting off of this group chat, and he throws his phone on the couch. And I said, "Who are you in a group chat with?" And he said, "Oh, the JV football team." And I said, "Okay, he just started, right? He's a freshman, so he's doing this summer camp."
mhm,
And I said, "Oh, well, why don't you just mute the conversation?" And he
yeah,
said, "Oh, thanks, mom. Thanks for telling me that." And
like
I said,
sarcastic,
"Well,
or
I thought, why did you
yeah,
complain then? Why didn't you just mute it?" And I said, "What app are you on?" And he said, "iMessage." And I said, "What is that?" And he said, "It's the iPhone message." And I said,
mm,
"Well, you mean text message?" And he said, "Yes, text message." I said,
mm,
"Well, why do you refer to it as iMessage?" And he said, "Because there's, all these different apps that they can be talking to each other on." So, well, thank you,
interesting,
Ryan. I enjoyed
yeah,
the conversation and your input. I've learned a lot. There's things that I did not know, and I'm sure our listeners will feel the same. You have your book, Behind the Mask of Facebook, a whistleblower shocking story of big tech bias and censorship. How can people get a copy?
yeah. So you can find it online on any bookstore. It's on Amazon. You can find it with the publisher as well, Skyhorse Publishing, Barnes and Noble. But yeah, it's a hefty book. It's 300 pages. So if you like heavy
Okay.
books, or and it's yeah, pick up a copy. It's a great read.
Yeah, great. Yeah, and we'll put it in our store. We have our bookstore here at America Out Loud News, so I'll make sure to get that in our bookstore as well. All right,
Great.
friends, until next time, be safe, be well, and God bless.